Welcome to Clay Mastermind with Don Grant. Mental excellence and industry insights. Brought to you by the Clay Lab, your ultimate podcast for mastering the mental game of clay shooting and gaining exclusive insights from the top minds in the industry. Join us as we dive into the strategies of elite athletes, uncover the secrets to peak performance, and share powerful techniques to enhance your shooting skills. Plus, get behind-the-scenes access to the leaders and innovators who are shaping the future of the clay shooting industry. Get ready to elevate your game, sharpen your focus, and gain insider knowledge from the best in the business. Let's get started. Here's your host, Don Grant.
Okay, folks, welcome to Clay Mastermind with Don Grant, Mental Excellence and Industry Insights. I'm super excited to be here with Jim Lowry, who happens to live in my general area and comes to my shotgun club pretty regularly, as well as the other clubs in the area. And I've watched him, excel or grow, I should say, in the sport and become more and more interested and evolving. And I know that the listeners like to hear from weekend warriors, but Jim is a weekend warrior plus, right, Jim?
Yes.
So I like to start off with just a little highlight so people can have like a bit of an overview of who you are, and then they can decide if they're going to keep listening. So who is Jim, and why can people relate to you?
Well, I'm probably the oldest guy shooting at every event I go to. I was born in Gwinnett County, Georgia, left in 1960, came back in 2011, so I was gone for like 50 or 60 years. Very fortunate, had hardworking parents and a mother who insisted I go to college, so I ended up graduating from Georgia Tech and went on an engineering career, and then that turned into a business career, et cetera, et cetera. When I was younger, relative to shooting, it was a rite of passage to be able to go from a BB gun to a 22 plinker to a shotgun. And then when the men thought you were safe, they would allow you to go hunting. So we did a lot of rabbit and bird hunting when I was a youngster. I'll have to admit that by the time I was 18 and in college, I stopped hunting. And the joke is I lugged my shotgun around the world, shotgun and rifle around the world for the next 40 or 50 years and never fired them. So,
oh, wow.
So it was one of those situations. That's sort of the background. And then if you're interested in how I got into this sport, through my professional career, I played golf some. I had a 5-year career in golf right out of college and wasn't very good, got down to about a 7 or 8 handicap, and then put the clubs away when family and children and career came along and became more important. And 25 years later, one of my daughters asked me, "Dad, I'd like to play some golf. Would you go out with me and play?" And so I opened up the bag and took out the clubs, put new grips on them, and she and I went to playing golf in the evenings, and that got me started doing that. And I played golf up until I was about probably 60, 65, somewhere in there. And again, with like a 10 handicapper at the golf game. But I practiced it and I studied it and I worked hard at it. Then we'll go forward to about 7 or 8 or 9 years ago. Interesting piece of information that I think is that when I was 77 years old, I had never seen a sporting clay. I'd seen them in the box on shelves, but I'd never seen one flying through the air. And some friends had a gentleman they wanted to take out and to our gun range and shoot from a manual thrower. And they talked me into going. So I got my old 1148 out, bought a couple of boxes of shells, and went out and started shooting clays. And that was really fun. It was a lot more fun than shooting targets, either at poking holes in paper or hitting a gong with a rifle or a pistol. I did, in fact, shoot the Steel Challenge with pistol. Really enjoyed that. Wasn't very good, but I learned how to handle a sidearm. With the shotgun shooting over a 6 or 7 year, that progressed to where a group of us got together every Tuesday morning and went out to our gun range, shut the range down, put out 6 or 8 throwers, and would shoot sporting clays. And we had a good time doing that. Then a couple of an event occurred in our areas called Amelia Shotgun Sports opened up, and
Okay.
a couple of guys in the area talked me into going there. That took about a year before I would do that because I was really not a very good shot. So I eventually went to Amelia and started shooting, and there was a group of us that went down on Thursday. And by the way, we still do that. There's a group here, different people, but we all go down on Thursday generally and shoot around, if you would. Then had another couple of friends, one at a exercise facility I go to regularly that shot down at Jacksonville Shotgun Sport, and he talked me into going there with them. And so I started doing that. So now I'm doing Amelia and Jacksonville, and I really enjoy just taking part in shooting sporting clays. It was it was a challenge, and I really wasn't very good. I still am not very good, but I enjoy doing it. And then about in 22, I decided, well, you're getting really old. If you're ever going to do this at any level that you enjoy, that makes you feel good, then I'm going to have to learn how to do it. And so I decided to find some instructor, and happened on to TJ Hawk, who, by the way, you had on your podcast last
I
week.
did. Yeah.
And I hooked up with him. He and I happened to hit it off. First time I met him, I told him this: you don't have to worry. If you think I'm going to be the person that makes your career, forget it. We'll stop right now. I will never, ever be good enough. I will just enjoy what I'm doing. And we'll go, sorry about the phone. We'll work at it because I enjoy working. And we'll talk about this a little more. I really enjoy the learning process. That's always been my life. Everything in my life has been that way. I have enjoyed the learning process. And so for example, when I played golf originally, I hit 200 to 300 golf balls every day, 6 days a week. I'd go out, hit them, pick them up, go back and hit them again, and work at the game, learning how to do it. The same way with this sport is that it takes a lot of experience to do it. And so I enjoy that process. TJ and I have gotten along really well together. I consider him a friend. I hope he considers me one. And we have shot some competitions together. We have shot a lot together with either he and I or he and a couple of guys go shooting. He's trying to get better. I can watch him and try to get better. So that's sort of been the progress. Somewhere in there, probably late 22, I decided, frankly, I didn't want to be the guy who goes to Amelia all the time, shoots all of their events, and ends up becoming a AA shooter, shooting at that level. I wanted to go see what the really good people did. So out of sheer foolishness, I just signed up for a whole bunch of things. First one was Caribbean Classic, and then the Florida Challenge down at Bradford. Then I went to the Florida State Championship at South Florida, the Georgia State Championship. Went to Bradford for one of the Southeast regionals that Rick Hemingway set, and man, was I ever out of my league. But what I've learned is if you don't go and shoot them, you don't experience them, and you don't learn how
Right.
to do it. So anyway, that's pretty much where I am.
That's
And
it.
yes, I'm signed up for the Jack Links in 2 weeks and about everything else around this area for the next 3 months.
That is a great summary. So now I'm dying to know, how old are you, Jim? You said you're the oldest at most competitions.
I am 86.
86.
Yes.
That's just not what it used to be, is it?
Well, let me tell you, good genetics. My mom almost made it to 100, and the good Lord has been good to me. I have not had major diseases or issues in my life. So I have been extremely fortunate. I am grateful and acknowledge that. And I'm just fortunate to be where I am. So
I
uh,
love it. I
I,
love it.
I look older and I'm getting older,
No,
but when you're not getting older, you got a real problem.
I just had another person at my club this past week. He travels down from like Chicago and he does the whole circuit at the beginning of the year. And he comes by my club every year. And yeah, he's in his 80s also.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Hugo, I love it. I think
Yes.
that's so awesome.
Yeah, there's a
Um,
group of us in the legacy group at the NSCA. It's old guys, but I'm the oldest one. Every time I run into somebody, they're 80, 81, 82.
you would never know it, honestly. I mean, you've got so much energy and strength and gusto, it's cool. I love it. Because it's not like this is, I don't know, playing chess or something where you're sitting down, inside. Like this is outside and it can be rigorous and, it takes your strength and your endurance and everything. And then you're traveling to these different events. So I
And
admire it.
that's the part I don't like about it is the logistical traveling, because I spent my career doing that.
Yeah.
Susan and I laugh. We want frequent stay-at-home miles. You
Yeah.
know, a lot of our friends want to go on these cruises and want to go travel to exotic places. Susan and I have all been there. All we want to do is stay home.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was curious about that. You said that you're born in Georgia. Like what part of Georgia? You said the town, but I'm not familiar with where that
Gwinnett
is.
County, it was Lawrenceville, right outside of Atlanta.
Outside of Atlanta.
Yeah,
Okay. So
it,
how
it was
close to Atlanta? Like
30
half
miles.
hour?
30
Okay.
miles. I drove, just so you know, for 4 years, I drove US 29 from my home to Georgia Tech for every day for 4 years.
Oh
Believe
my
that
gosh.
for interstates, by the way.
Oh boy. Yeah. But when you go to the outskirts of Georgia, it turns country pretty quickly.
Really
So
does. Yes.
were you in the country then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lawrenceville was a 7,000 person town. I could walk out my back door with my rifle and shoot in three directions without having to worry about people being around. We hunted everywhere, all around. There were woods and fields and so forth that you hunted in.
Yeah.
And it was rural.
Yeah, Joe's been going hunting southeast of Atlanta recently
Yeah.
with a neighbor friend.
Yep.
Yeah.
Once you drop past Macon, there is just a lot of hunting area. The Georgia opens up.
Yeah. 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 Well, what such a great upbringing. And I liked how you explained, how you moved up through the guns basically and the experiences. And so you went to college and you became an engineer and then you were gone, you said. Now that was traveling or did you end up living someplace else?
Oh, I lived Tennessee, then California for these are all 10 or 11 year periods. Then I came back to district DC, outside of DC and Maryland, and then Connecticut, New York, and finally then went to the Caribbean for 10 years. You won't believe that. After I retired, Susan, she always wanted a home on the seashore. She's from Minnesota.
Yeah.
So we went to the Caribbean, built a house and lived there for 10 years, and then came back here to Brunswick, St. Simons.
Oh
So
my gosh, so many
I've lived all
interesting
over
things.
outside the state of Georgia.
What made you decide to come back to the States after 10 years in the Caribbean?
One, the adventure ran out. When you're on an island that's 4 miles to south and 20 miles east to west, there's only so much you can do. And I could show you everything on the island in 4 hours, and the real value to the island is all 100 feet deep in the water. It's, like 300 dive sites around it. So that adventure just ran out. We decided we're getting older, you have medical issues, and you want to be in
Oh,
something that works there. So we decided to come back to the States. Interesting exercise. When you can live any place in the world you want to, where do you live? Okay, we decided it was going to be in the United States. And then we decided Austin East, Tennessee South to get away from weather. So we ended up
right.
in St. Simons.
That makes total sense. I could
Next,
understand that.
it's easy to say. It took us 3 years to find the place. Okay.
And you looked all in that whole general area.
Oh, yes. I have been in more subdivisions and more areas than you could shake a stick at.
Do you love the St. Simons area?
Yes, very nice. The nice thing, but I knew if we went to a small southern town, if your great-great-great-grandfather wasn't from here, you would never be a part of the town. And St. Simon is one of those that has a real cosmopolitan community, and that there's, half the people here live full time, half of them are snowbirds, and you got people from all over. Lots from Atlanta, lots from around here, and then a
Right.
lot from, God knows where. So it's a great sort of mix of people, and everybody we run into has been friendly. We're gregarious people, and most people are that way, and we've made good friends. So it's a wonderful area.
Yeah.
I wish Amelia was about 30 minutes closer, but that's neither here nor there.
You mean the Amelia Shotgun Sports or Amelia Island?
Yes, yes. It takes me an hour to get to your place instead of 30 minutes. It'd be nice.
Yeah. Well, so you said you were an engineer, and all
Yes.
this traveling, was it with one profession, or did you shift to different jobs or something?
When I first came out of school, I was an aerospace engineer, and I spent 11 years in wind tunnel tests in Tennessee and in California. Tested everything that flew up to that period of time, including the space shuttle and all that stuff. And I actually got a wee bit bored with that, went to business school and worked my way into the business profession. One of the first jobs I got was with Booz Allen and Hamilton out of Washington, and that was a management consulting firm working in the energy area, and did that for, 7 or 8 years. Then went to work with one of the major producers of power plants up in Connecticut. And somewhere along the line, I got a little bored with that, joined a new company in White Plains, New York, that provided energy for buildings in places like Boston and Philadelphia, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, etc., and expanding those plants and putting in power generation and stuff like that. And that was a real promise for me. I had decided to work until I was 70. After Enron collapsed, the whole industry had a consolidation going on, and we put our company to bed, if you would. And so at 65, I ended up my professional career. Susan talked me into going to the Caribbean. We did that instead of going to another job someplace.
I got you. So,
Interesting career. I was an original Renaissance man. I could stay for someplace 5, 6 years, and if I wasn't progressing, I got bored, so I went someplace else.
that part of you that's eager to learn and
Yes.
enjoys learning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting part. But I'm super curious because, the mind obviously plays an important role in how you're shooting. And most of my clients over the years, the ones that have struggled the most tend to be like engineers, math-minded, administrative, take control kind of people. And definitely from what you've described, you had a very technical career that would have absolutely been fine details, specifics, perfectionism, measuring, so how do you get away from that for your clay shooting?
Well, let's go back to golf.
Yeah.
I learned early in the golf process because I did the same thing with it. I took lessons routinely and worked on improvements. And what I learned in that profession is that it was very important to get your mind quiet, to visualize what you wanted the ball to do, and then have done it enough that you sort of automatically did that. And you've heard people talk about being in the zone, golfers being in the zone. Well, I didn't do that very often because I was a 7 or 8 handicapper, but I can tell you, I can remember today times in which I was and played well above my capabilities, well above my ability. And so as a result of that, when I got to shooting, I brought a lot of that with me. There's another thing about my sort of personality is I'm not afraid to fail, because if you don't try, you don't fail. I mean, if you don't try, you never fail. If you try and fail, then you got to figure out how to work at it to get better at it. So one of the reasons TJ and I hit it off so well is I go out and I shoot, and I love to shoot long birds, the big long ones, the far birds. And he says, Jim, you can't tell you how long it takes me to get a shooter to do that. And I'll go out and just shoot because I enjoy doing it. So I'm not afraid of it. And it was like when I started with competition, I said, okay, I'm old, I'm not very good, but I'm going to be shooting the same birds that a Malcolm Parker is going to be shooting. I'm just not going to do it as well as he does, but I'm going to go out here and have a good time doing it. And so I had a fun time learning how to do that. And so I've had to learn how to visualize what I'm trying to do. And people like Joe Skull and David Radulovich and so forth will tell you, just feel it. I've heard that over and over and over again. And when I feel it, it's funny, the clays break.
Right.
I'm going to give you a silly example that just happened last week at Blackjack Open. I went down on Friday, shot the preliminary, couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Got up the next day and shot 10, all day Saturday, shot 10 birds above my average on the main event and on the 5-stand and on the super sport. And, you look at it and say, where in the heck was your head yesterday?
Yeah. So where was that?
I have no idea.
You had said that there's people out there that talk about the zone. That's one of the things I teach, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Yes, I've heard that.
I'm one of those people. Yeah, so I think that's really cool so years ago, when you started golfing, you recognized the importance of clearing your mind, being present, visualization, thinking about where you want the ball to go, not where you don't want it to go.
Right.
Go. So where did you learn that? Do you remember?
One, I had some good instructors. When I was on the West Coast, I had one of the best instructors on the western half of the United States. I didn't know it at the time, but he was well known for that. Secondly, I read a lot of books about it. The old masters, the books they wrote, read about what they were thinking and so forth. And so I realized, let's take Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan visualizes the ball through the hook. Then he throws the ball and it goes through the hook. Well, Jack Nicklaus does exactly the same thing. You could tell my generation of golf. Jack Nicklaus does the same thing. He visualizes and then he puts the ball where he wants it to go. And my suspicion, if you listen to Powell, not Dan Powell, but the really good Powell.
Brandon, yes.
Brandon Powell, you listen to him talk about it. It's the same thing with him. Just go out and shoot the thing. And Joe Skull says the same thing. Just go shoot the darn thing. So that's what they're saying in their different ways is visualize what you're going to do and then just go do it.
Easier said than done, right?
When I do it well, if you ask me what my lead was, I'll tell you I have the slightest idea what the lead was.
Right.
I put the gun out, moved it, and the clay broke.
Which goes back to what's pretty phenomenal about you because of your work experience is a lot of people with more of an engineering, math-minded brain would want to measure. And you're basically saying that you've observed that doesn't work for you, that what does work for you, the times where you shot your best is when you didn't measure and you just shot it. John Woolley says, look at the bird, right? He's got that slogan.
Yeah. Yep.
And so there are lots of instructors out there they're simplifying it, right? Just look at the bird, look at something specific on the target, look at the light, look at the shadow.
Yeah.
Just shoot it, just feel it. The trick though is to get out of your own way so you can be that simple. Yeah. But that's the trick, right? Yeah. Especially if somebody has more of like a math-minded brain or something, because there's all this crud that we bring to the table. You said that you shot the preliminary not so great, but then the main event, what did you say, 10 above?
Yeah. Yes.
On each side event. Yeah, that's not like your mechanics disappeared. That's something about your mind
Yes.
that
Correct.
was going on one day that wasn't going on the others. Tell me, what is your belief system around the concept of it's 90% mental, which is, a phrase that's out there in all sports.
Yeah. I would argue we is probably 100% mental once you get through a few basics. You know, I'll give you an example of what's happening. One of the negatives I have is my hands are awful fast.
Uh-huh.
And so uh, when I first started, that was really good because I didn't know what I was doing, and I just sweep the gun and oftentimes hit the clay uh, with a fast motion. Well, in working with TJ, one of the things he has to be doing is slowing that down and making sure I turn with the body, not with the arms,
Uh-huh.
and get where you have a better quote feel for where you are for the bird. And when you do that, it's just amazing how much better that works.
Uh-huh.
And so to me, it really all is mind because, there are a few basic things that you have to do. You have to know where the gun is. You have to put the gun on your cheek so that it is pointing where you're looking. Once you've got that sort of down, and if you got your feet right, and if you turn from the waist like a turret on a tank, then you've got the mechanics pretty well down. Now what you have to do is just look at the bird and feel it, if you would.
Uh-huh.
And whether you
Uh-huh.
hit it at the prime spot or whether you need a little more time and hit it after it's come over its prime area and coming down toward the ground or whatever, that allows you to do that. And you just don't get in a hurry. It's amazing how much it slows the bird down. You see it, everything is smooth, and the bird just breaks. I mean, I'm sure you've talked to Joe about this over and over and over again. It's just a great feeling when that occurs.
I mean, 20 years of talking to clay shooters, it definitely is a hot topic. That the trick is, though, and I'm actually super impressed with how well you're able to do this. And I think it's the years that you've been doing things like golf and clay shooting. But again, to repeat myself, to have such an engineering, math-minded, perfectionistic brain, and that is not causing you very many problems. Or maybe it is, we haven't talked about it yet. But um, because that would be like miraculous to me that you could just put that away. Because yeah, feeling it and being in that moment and pivoting at the waist are all great things, but how do you keep yourself from measuring, and how do you keep yourself from thinking about the last shot or thinking about your score or thinking about, oh, this is a rabbit and I suck at rabbits? Like, that's all the mental game. So how are you keeping your conscious mind quiet?
Well, not very well might be the right answer to that.
Okay.
I'll give you an example of this last Saturday. Tough, true pair. I don't remember the details, but tough, true pair. Dead pair, dead pair. And my mind says to me, all right, you're doing this really well. Just keep doing it. And I
Yeah,
knew that had screwed it up.
that was
And
it
sure
right
enough,
there.
lost pair. And then the fourth one was a dead pair.
Damn it all.
And you sat
Yeah.
there and I said, you let your conscious mind come out. Why didn't you stop? Don't say pull, stop, get your
Yeah.
mind back where it needs to be and go. And I did it on the fourth one, but the third one was I knew it. I laughed at myself when it was over with and said, you idiot, you just let it
Eh,
happen and you didn't
Yes.
stop it. So, yeah,
Perfect example.
yeah,
Perfect
perfect example.
example.
And
Yes.
by the way, if you analyze my scores, you'd find an awful lot of times I'll hit the first pair, and somewhere along the line I'll begin to miss. And that is the reason my scores are 60s and not 80s, if you would.
Right.
And
Right.
I'm working.
Okay.
That's why I come to a media and shoot the green course over and over and over again. It's just to get rid of that. Okay.
It sounds like you need to work on your mental game, Jim.
Yeah. All right.
Not
The
to
mental
say
game
anything.
is up. You got to remember, I'm 86 years old. If I can get bored real quick with stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's
Somebody
a
told me somewhere along the way that you needed to be slightly autistic to be really good at this sport.
there's a few of those out there, I'd have to say,
Yes.
I've observed. Yes.
Yes.
What do you think would be the factor in a slightly autistic person that would help them to shoot well?
They're able to keep their mind in one narrow band, and
Yeah.
okay. It's kind of like, here, go do this routine task. Put this bolt on this, this automobile, and you
Yeah.
could sit there and do it hours out on the end and not get bored and start thinking about cutting the grass at home or going someplace else or whatever.
Right. I agree with you there. I think you're onto something. You know what else, though, on the spectrum of autism is like a disconnect, like an emotional disconnect or lack of like a level of empathy, meaning connection with others. And I could see how that would play a part also, because then you're not worried, like, am I taking too long in the stand? What are these people thinking about me? Shooting with this top shooter and oh, I'm going to change the sequence of how I'm going to shoot these targets or where I'm going to break them compared to that top shooter. Like, there's all these things that can go on in the mind that I think if you're disconnected on some level from not caring what other people think, then that's a whole nother piece of the pie that's removed from the mental game equation,
Well,
the challenge.
maybe that's what helped me a little bit because, at my age in life, oh, what do you want to? It's your problem, not mine now.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Lowry doesn't have a problem. I'm going to go out dressed ever how I'm dressed. If you don't like the clothes I got on, that's your problem, not mine. And if I go
Right.
shooting and shoot a 68, I'll feel good about that. And you look at it and say, that guy's not very good. And I just don't care
Yes.
because I recognize I'm not very good. So what's the big deal? To go out and have a good time, do the best
Uh,
I know how, shoot the
yeah.
best I can. I'm shooting the same stuff that the best guys in the world do. People like Malcolm Parker and Bill McGuire, TJ Hawk, Dan Powell, they're not going to ever have to worry about me. I'm not somebody they're going to worry about. So we can be good friends and have a really good time, enjoy shooting with them. I mean, I learn a lot when I shoot with those kind of people, but
Uh-huh.
they don't have to worry about me, and I sure the hell don't care about them. So
That is definitely another part of it that I could see happens with some people as they get older. I mean, I can say I have a few clients that are slightly older that still care, but a majority, I think that is part of getting older, right?
yeah,
You come into your own. You're like, this is who I am. Take it or leave it. I'm not looking to impress you. I'm not here to try to, do what you think I should do. I'm here for myself and my own learning and my own fun and my own enjoyment. And yeah, that definitely would be a huge part of it.
and maybe that sounds a little selfish. It probably does, but in effect, if Joe Skull thinks I'm a good shooter, that's fine. Doesn't affect me any. If he thinks I'm a lousy shooter, that's just fine. I think he's probably more right on that one than the
N-
former. And,
You
if,
say that a lot now. I don't know,
and
Jim.
so, yeah, and so I don't take it as a negative. I don't think I will ever be a 90% shooter. Maybe
Yeah.
say I might shoot 90 somewhere, but to tell me that I'm going to go out and routinely shoot in the 90s. I recognize I had this event down in Vero Beach the other day. I was shooting with TJ and a couple of other of his friends, and I recognized there's two levels of people in shooting.
Uh-huh.
When you run a station and they cheer, that's one group of people. When you miss something in a station and everybody turns their head and said, "Why the hell did he miss that?" That's the other group. Okay, so you've got
Yeah.
some people in it. The Brandon Powells, the Bill McGuires, the TJ Hawks, the Dan Powells all belong to those groups. Jim Lowry and the 99% of us belong to this other group. So go out, try to run the station and have a really good time at it. Feel really good about it.
Yeah. You had mentioned selfish and how some of the things I listed off could sound selfish. And you're making me think of something that I just find really fascinating with humans. And we've put this negative connotation on the word selfish, and there's actually nothing wrong with being selfish, but like everything in life, it can have a negative side. It can have a light side, a shadow side, if you want to say, a positive side, a negative side. Literally everything in life is that way. But one of the things that I feel is a big disservice that people do to themselves is not being more selfish or not being more self-confident and actually being able to say, I'm good. And it doesn't have to be I'm as good as Brandon Powell, but I'm good for where I am in my life or for my age or for what I've done. And it doesn't mean that it's arrogant, and selfish doesn't mean that it's bad. Wanting to take good care of yourself and put yourself first has a lot of positive aspects to it. And if anything, we should be mindfully doing that regularly. But that doesn't mean to be in the dark side of that, meaning I don't give a crap about anybody and I'm going to step on whoever I can to get where I want to go. I'm going to be rude to people and disrespectful because it's all about me.
Yeah,
That's when it becomes.
that's a whole different selfish issue in my mind.
Right. And it is. It is. And so the kind of selfish that I was talking about is actually very positive and healthy. And I do believe it's one of the things that's probably helping you out and helping you when you're performing well. I think that's awesome.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
it's that part that I think that allows me to get out of the highly analytical into where I'm trying to just let the flow. Radulovich just says, feel it. That's his mantra. You've got to feel it. And darned if when it works, you feel that. Now,
Yeah.
there are times when you get lucky and you said, I got away with one there. You know full well that you didn't feel it. But there are times when Joe had one of his stands, orange 2, was set up. And man, when I made that work, I got both of those clays and nobody else was hitting them. And I was hitting them like that, like I owned them.
Nice.
Only when I felt it,
Well, and the interesting and to me super fascinating thing about just feel it is that's the end result, right? That's part of being in the zone.
Yeah.
Is you're totally connected. It's the feeling. It's a great feeling. People describe it as euphoric or like this high. They wish it could keep going. They don't realize that they're on the last station. Everything disappears around them. It's like them and the target. The target looks bigger. It's like a trash can lid. Everything seems to slow down. They're not thinking. It doesn't even feel like it's them pulling the trigger. All of these things, and those are all descriptions of this zone state, including feeling it. And the thing is like, how do you reverse that out, though? It's one thing to tell somebody, just feel it, but you got to reverse that out because there's a process to get to that point. And there's a lot of people that don't believe you can train to be in the zone, but I adamantly disagree with that. I know you can train to be in the zone, but to get to the point where you just feel it, you've got to do some stuff. Like you've got to do some work. That's just going to, it happens miraculously sometimes. And that's why people say, well, I've been in the zone here and there. It's sporadic. I wish I could do it more. But as soon as you start trying to do it more, it's the opposite. You got to let go to experience it and do some other things. Like your conscious mind's not just going to be blank. Like you have to learn how to do that, and you have to learn how to be present and engaged and all of these things. But so feeling it, seeing it, these are all very simple concepts, but they're hard because we are our own worst enemy. We have a lot of and it's all individual. Depends on the person. If I give the example of somebody in the stand and they're worried about how long they're taking and holding up their squad, I could say that to someone and they go, oh, well, that's not me. I've never even thought about that. I could care less what my squad. And then they think, well, the mental game, that can't help me because I'm not that person. Well, no, that's just an example. Like, 'cause there's other, like some people worry more about the score or their missed shot or how the targets are set or the frustration with the golf carts and side-by-sides driving by. And there's so many things that can get in your head.
Well, it's funny because, as you know, I shoot with a group of guys.
Yeah.
We have one guy that constantly adds up his score. The only thing he cares about is what his score is. And he wants to know that station by station. And I've had to tell him, don't add mine up because I don't want to see it on the card because I don't care about the score until it's over with. And
Yeah.
I've had another friend that came down who, and maybe I can elaborate on this. One of the things I've sort of realized about this sport is he had never shot plays before. And he said, Jim, tell me how to do it and I will go do it. And
Yeah.
I said to him, I can't do that because I can't tell you how to shoot a given clay. You have to go out and you have to shoot it because our eyes are different. Our minds work differently. Physically, we work differently. Our sort of attitude about how we approach it is different. So every human being is different. And I think that's one of the things I had to learn was, all right, since I'm one of those guys who's willing to, to go try, if I decide I want to try something, I'll go out and try to do it perfectly. And I'll work my tail off trying to get to do it perfectly. And to me, that is demanded of this sport. And that's why I went out with the competitive areas, because I knew I would see birds that were set at different levels. And if you listen to Rick Hemingway, he talks about the levels when you go from a local monthly to a state event, to a regional event, to a open event, and so forth, that they progressively get more difficult. If you don't see those, you don't experience them, you don't learn how to deal with them, then you don't learn how to be a better shooter. And
Right.
and to me, that's what makes this sport so difficult. By the way, I often get asked, which do I think is more difficult, this or golf? Number one, I think that's a foolish question. They're both difficult. They're difficult in different ways. There is two distinct things for me in shooting. One, when you hit the golf ball, you see the ball and you know where it goes. Oops, I faded that one, or I hooked it, or I hit it short, I hit it fat, whatever. You know that.
Right.
In shooting, you don't know that because you don't see where I cannot see where the shot went. I can think I was ahead of it or behind it or above it or below it, but I don't know that for a fact. The second thing is that in golf, when I played golf, every 6-foot putt had to be made. There was no way to make up for that. And a 40-foot putt, you hope to get down in 2, right? The idea of it going in for sure was just not there. So you figured, okay, that's 2 strokes. In shooting sporting clays, every shot is a 6-foot putt.
Yeah.
And you either have a 0 or a slash on your card, and there's no way to make that up. So you have to focus on every shot, just like you do that 6-foot putt on golf. It's those are the two things I think make it somewhat more difficult. Now, the other nice thing about golf is you don't get the same shot over and over and over again. The negative thing about golf is you don't get the same shot over and over and over again. You just hit a drive, now you got to hit a 9-iron. Okay,
Right.
you sure would like to hit that drive over, but you can't do it. And shooting shotguns, the real key is I just hit the first 2. Now I got to do this 3 more times. That is a tough part of the sport.
Sporting clays in particular. Yeah. And, I get asked the same thing because I've worked with, PGA and LPGA golfers, and, I helped Vijay Singh win the FedEx Cup via putting, right? And putting and overcoming putting issues that he had for like a year and a half.
Right.
But, what I see as some differences, one related to golf, is that period of time that you're walking to the next shot, there can be so many different types of thoughts. So again, if we kind of rewind to, what is the mental game? And here you and I believe it's 90 or even 100% of it. So if this mental game's going on, what is that? Well, it's the worry or the doubt, the second guessing, insecurities, regretting, thinking about your score, thinking about the weather, thinking about an argument you had with your significant other. It could be anything mental that's going on that's keeping you out of what we call the zone, which is where
You're
you're
in your
present.
conscious mind if you think about it.
Well, that's exactly what it is. So your conscious mind is so that we can say it's chatter. That literally is the part of the mind that would worry or doubt or second guess. Like it can wander in all these different places, which is the exact opposite of how I describe the zone state, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So for me, in golf, you have a lot of opportunity for a lot of chatter because you're walking to each of these shots. So for me, that's one of the big challenges in golf that's a little bit different. I mean, you have that in clay shooting when you're going station to station, but you don't have that between shots where you have it between shots in golf. But to counter it and to be just as challenging, just in a different way, is with sporting clays. When you have 3 pairs of the same thing or 4 pairs of the same thing, what happens is the conscious mind gets bored and it likes the shiny penny. So it's kind of, like there's that movie, I don't even remember what it was, where it's like squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. The conscious mind wants to be chewing on something. It wants to have that shiny penny or something new and interesting and fascinating. When someone changes to a release trigger, that's what happens. The conscious mind is like, okay, now I have something to focus on. Like I have to consciously think about releasing my finger instead of pulling it. And so what happens with the conscious mind with these pairs is that it's boring, it's mundane, it's monotonous, and it's repetitive. As a hypnotherapist, we do that on purpose. So when a hypnotherapist is talking to somebody to help their conscious mind go into more of a daydreamy state, we are deliberately like monotone, slow, repetitive, and boring. Like this is my job to bore people. And so what happens though when you have these pairs is your mind can easily wander unless you've trained it to be more present. And that's why people end up either they're not present on the first pairs, so they drop them and then they kick themselves into shape, or they have a good pre-shot routine and they're doing well and they're present, but then they get loose focus throughout the pairs. Or in the middle, their mind wanders and then they kick themselves back into shape and then they do fine on the first and the last pair. So there's a lot of variety on how the conscious mind, like you said, can cause an issue with these repetitive pairs. And it's, talking to a lot of people over the years, there are people that will say, well, that's why I like FETASC, or that's why I like super sporting, because there's variety and it keeps my interest and I'm more engaged.
Yes.
And so that's the secret. Like, how do we keep the interest? How do I stay more engaged? And which is look at the bird, right?
Yes.
And it comes back full circle.
Yeah. Well, and to tell you how I've addressed that, I didn't think about this just a moment ago. I come down to a media oftentimes on Tuesday when nobody else is there.
Yeah.
And what I will do is I will stay in a stand and I will shoot until I hit the pair 3 times or 5 times. I'll make up my mind, okay, you can't leave this until you either run out of shells or you hit it 5 times in a row. And I will stand there and I shoot, and I may use 2 or 3 boxes to get my 5. It is really frustrating to get 4 and miss the 5th one. Then you have to start all over again. And that means you just shot over and over. But what it does is it's part of your training process. It trains me, okay, focus on what you're doing and do that. And you'd be amazed how many times I'm able to pull that off. And I think that's why I'm progressing as a shooter in competition, is because I now see more stations that I run. I look at a station and say, okay, you know how to hit these. Get your hold point right. Get your where you're going with the second bird. Make sure you've got all that in place. And now when you do that, that's before you step into the stand. When you step in the stand, all I do is focus on visualizing those birds breaking. It's going to hold it here. It's going to go out. I'm going to break it. I got to come back this way. I'm going to break that one here. And, do I hit them all? Certainly not. I'm not an 80, I'm a 60% shooter at the tough positions. That to me is a a routine that I have used to try to improve at that.
It's brilliant.
With
I
TJ's
don't
help.
know with TJ's help. Yeah, well, Wendell Cherry does the grid like that,
Yes.
and he won't move on to the next position until he's shot. I don't even. Is it 100 each? I don't even know the number.
Yeah.
But that's great training for both mechanics and mental.
Yes.
Because as we've been discussing, you can have the mechanics, but your mind can wander for one moment, or it can go, "Oh, good job! You've got just one more." And then the moment you think that, then you lose that last one. So you're learning through that technique good mental management of not letting your mind, like you're the supervisor of your mind, and you're like, no, you're not going to wander. Like you're going to do what you're supposed to do, and you're going to sit right here, and you're going to heal. And so, it's a great technique for both mechanics and mental, and because you have to overcome the obstacles that would have caused you to not maintain that streak. And obviously, maintaining a streak is going to be huge in competition.
Yes.
And then doing it under pressure and doing it when you're in the lead and not letting your mind get in the way of those things.
I've never had to worry about the lead part, but that's okay.
Well, you never know, Jim. I'm thinking that you have some promising stuff coming up here. You just have to stop telling yourself that you're never going to be there, or that you're not going to be that good.
Let me tell you something. That does not affect my performance at all. It's just that, in reality, I don't get ahead of myself. Do I think I might I shot an 88 at Old Hudson one day, and I didn't even know it. I didn't know it until I ended up the score. And to me, that was the best thing that could happen to me, was I shot an 88.
Well, if I could just give you a tidbit of expertise, wisdom, advice, you might not think that that's affecting you. And there's different variable levels of how that kind of phrase could affect somebody. Somebody could really think it, and then therefore it's what we call a glass ceiling or something, right? So I would encourage you to just open your mind. And I know you're wanting to be realistic and a realist, and there are lots of people out there like that, right? They're like, I'm realistic. But the thing is especially since you have shot an 88, it's absolutely possible for you to shoot a 90. It doesn't mean you have to live and breathe it and count your score, because that would be the negative, dark side of focusing on your score. And like everything, there is a light side, there is a positive side. It's just like setting goals. I'm sure that you did that in your profession. So you can have a goal, but you don't need to be obsessed about it. And that's where it becomes a problem. And this is the same with score. And some people checking their score continually, and some people avoiding their score because as soon as they know it, then it messes with their head. You can actually, anybody, not just you, can get to a point where they can know their score and be fine, which I think is what you're saying. You're saying, I am okay that I may never break 90. But what I'm going to encourage you to do is just open up your mind a little bit. Just say, well, hey, I got 88 before. I think it's highly likely for you to get 90. And not even just slightly. I think it's highly likely. And the amount that you're interested in enjoying the learning process and committing yourself and your due diligence and going to my club on Tuesdays and that kind of practice, and then getting your instruction and going to all these different clubs to shoot different kinds of targets. I mean, you've got the recipe. You've got the elements of the equation. I think that it's okay, kind of like it's okay to be selfish, and it's okay to have confidence. It's okay to believe that you can be a great shooter in your age group. And who knows, one of the best. It doesn't have to be your goal.
Well, when you talk about age group, it's interesting. I am All-American number 6 in the country out of 400.
See, Jim, what in the hell? Exactly. Your humility is out of control.
Well, let me tell you, number one, I didn't know that existed until TJ jumped all over it.
That's awesome.
And so forth. Ruben Spell and Norman Smith are way above where I am. So I've got a long way to go to catch those gentlemen. I've shot with Ruben, and he's like me. He's an old guy, but he holds that gun steady, and he knows how to do it. So would I like to beat them? The answer would be fun. That would be a real accomplishment to come out ahead of them, because of who they are and the capabilities they have.
Right.
I just think I'm realistic. The sort of the motto I come around with is I'm getting older faster than I'm getting better. So
Oh, I don't know though. I don't know. Okay.
keep
So you
working.
said Amelia Shotgun Sports opened and that's when you started going, but I didn't know if you meant that specifically. So my shotgun club opened like 20 years ago. Is that when you started shooting? Or do you mean when I bought it like 7 years ago?
Well, I can't tell you it. Let's see, that's 22. It was probably 18 or 19 when I started going to 2018 or 2019 when I started going to Amelia.
Oh, okay. So you just
On
learned about it.
on a sensitive subject, Jimmy was
Yeah.
still there, and a group of us got together with a lesson from him, and
Yeah.
frankly, it helped us a lot. So
Well, that's good. That's good. And it's not a sensitive subject. That's just ancient history.
ancient history. I have a couple of those in my life. I understand.
I'm actually glad to hear that he helped you.
Yes,
That's a
it was.
positive.
What he really said is you have to get out of your comfort zone, and that's
Oh,
when I
okay.
started shooting longer birds better.
Oh, I like that. I'm amazed. I'm amazed. That was good advice.
Yes, yep.
Well, good. So my point though is how long you've been shooting and the amount of your interest and your commitment and the ways and the methods that you're going about learning and making sure it's well-rounded. I mean, there's so many things adding up to absolutely you have been getting better. You will continue to get better.
Absolutely.
And there's no reason to limit yourself as far as where that can take you.
Well, I
And
don't take that as a fact that I don't think I'll ever be better. Better for me is going from being an average 67 shooter to an average 75 shooter.
yeah.
That's important to me. That's what
Yeah.
I'm working toward. And then if I can go from 75 to 80, that would even be better. Because on average, that means when you're having a really good day and your mind's working really well, you're going to go up and do better. And
Perfect.
to me, that's the fun part of this whole thing. You know,
I like it.
last Saturday was a fun day. I ended up getting 7 punches. Would you believe that?
Nice.
Cleaned me up royally.
No, that's perfect. So you do have these goals
Oh yeah.
and you do have these things you're aspiring to and that's great. And it's important. If somebody, not saying you, just anybody listening, like if they are telling themselves something like, "Oh, I'll never be good enough. I'll never get to that point." And then at the same time is looking for evidence of that. See, look at, I can never break more than this and see, I'm not as good as that person. Then all that crud thinking it's like just you might as well hold yourself underwater. I mean, you're not going to. So again, your brain's very fascinating. So you understand that, and the more I talk to you, the more I hear that you do have these goals, you do have these aspirations, but at the same time, you've just been trying to be real or realistic.
Realistic. Yeah.
But but again, we could still loosen that. There's something, if I don't know, I'm trying to think of an analogy, like with my shotgun club. If I was like, oh well, I only have 500 members, and that's probably all that I really am going to get for this area and these people, and this general region and da da da, then I'll be less likely to try to do the steps to try to increase membership,
Yes.
right? But if I'm thinking, oh well, five, great, I might not have 5,000 members like in Dallas or something, but I can strive towards 700, or I can strive to 800, and if that's a goal, then I might actually run an ad for memberships, right? But if I don't have that goal, then I'm not going to take the action to actually move in that direction. So it's important, even if they're small steps,
Right.
to have them,
Well,
and not
I
just
think the thing that I did was, one, realizing where I was in life, which, if I was 30 years old and doing this, or even 50 years old and doing this, the mindset would be different. However, I realize there's going to be one of these days that I'm not going to get up and go anymore. I realize that. That's just the reality of being
for all of us.
80-something
Yes.
years old. Now,
Yeah.
I'm just closer than lots of other folks are. Now, with that said, one of the things I enjoy doing is, as you know, on Thursday, there's a group of us that come down, usually somewhere between 3 and 7 or 8, come down from Brunswick to shoot at Amelia. I enjoy doing that. And what I mentally do is I make that a competition. Nobody else knows it's a competition, but I do. And so I like it because I haven't seen Joe's orange course since he set it up for your shoot, 2 weeks
Right.
ago. And so I'm eager to go back down and with a group and shoot that, because then I can pretend that this isn't an event and I haven't seen the birds before. Therefore, I have to do all the analytical work, the prep work, and so forth before I get in the stand, and see how well I do with that.
Yes.
Now when I go back down and work at it, can I improve my first visit to it? Can I go improve that and work on those that are more difficult or those I don't do very well, and then get better at shooting that whole event? To me, that is a value. And then occasionally we'll just do the green course. My purpose on that is to shoot 100.
Right.
That is my goal when I go into that, is to shoot 100. I've gotten 92. That's the best I've gotten on it, but I keep working at it. And so to me, I can have a good time at this, and yet I can do my work at it to try to be even better, because I'm the only one of the group that goes to the competitive events around. So there are people who are just interested in shooting once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, and that's just fine. We have a great time, and then I go to the events, and I can go down and shoot 700-800 rounds at an event, and really enjoy that. I will tell everybody listening, if you want something that you really enjoy doing, the shooting part of this is really fun. It's hard to hit everyone, but that's not your purpose in life. And I tell them, remember, the best people in the world very seldom shoot 100. So you can go down and have a great time doing the sport, and you don't have to be like me trying to get better. I personally enjoy the learning process and the improvement process.
Right.
I don't know what it would be to be like a TJ Hawk or a Malcolm Parker, where your purpose in life is to go from 96 to 99. That's got to be mind-boggling to be there. I'm working my tail off to try to get 2 more birds per set. It's got to be just hard.
Yeah, and I like what you're saying, is you're basically advising people, like, just honor yourself, like, it's okay. Like, some people want to be on Team USA, and some people want to, win HOA at a major event, and others, are happy with, a certain score that they're looking to achieve without overthinking it. Yes. So that's good wisdom that you're passing on. I appreciate that.
And by the way,
I'm sure,
just so you don't think I am too negative on myself, I already got my HOA speech made up, so
Jim, the secrets come out now.
Yeah. When that occurs, I'm ready. Okay.
Okay. Well, let's get you. You can be HOA at my club. That's awesome.
I'm working on it. You've noticed I haven't made it yet.
You're going to get there. I have faith in you. And I appreciate what you said about when you practice, come once a week, that you're practicing as if you're performing, which is another great strategy for getting better in competition. So thanks for sharing that tidbit also. So you are jam-packed full of wisdom, whether you realize it or not. So you shared a lot of good tidbits. So thank you.
My pleasure. I appreciate being involved with you guys. You do a good job at Amelia. Everybody should know that.
Thank you.
The 2 courses are just a great improvement on it. So I really appreciate that.
It's come a long way. I mean, the club really was on its last leg 7.5 years ago, and everything has been either replaced, remodeled, refurbished, new traps, totally redone traps, everything. And it's been great, because probably for a few years now, it's run very well. Like, we we got over all those hurdles of learning and growing and building and fixing and repairing and buying,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
now I can, reinvest in expansion and all of that versus repairs, which is what I've done. Like, it's been a year now since I added the second course.
Yes.
And so I've got an easy course and a competitive course, and other than during competition, they both go
You know what
competitive.
easy means, don't you?
What?
Easy to miss.
Well, that's another thing that happens related to the mind. Yeah, you can take it for granted instead of being mindful and deliberate.
The instant you turn your mind off, you miss. By the way, I'll also say Charlie is doing a superb job. And I know he sets most of the green course. I'm sure he works with Joe, but he's done a real great job of that. Don't get on him too hard, because I convinced him to leave a couple of tough ones on green. So don't give him too hard a time.
No, Charlie's my son, and he's been there since high school, and again, since I bought the club, and he is now like the course outdoor manager, but he 100% sets the green course by himself, and has for probably 6 to 8 months, and a lot. And of course, he's taught through Joe Skull, so his targets are similar in a way. Obviously, he doesn't have 30 plus years of experience, but a lot of people will say they think Joe set both courses, or they'll say, I know, I'm amazed myself. I mean, I'm proud of my son that he's to that degree.
Absolutely.
Now, he has a lot to learn, and I'm not saying that they're perfect, and there are little tweaks and things that obviously either myself or Joe can see or hear about. But overall, he's come a long way. Joe last year started saying he's good enough he could set events around the country. And I was like, you're just being nice. They're saying that because it's my son. He's like, I'm saying it because it's real. And if he was interested, he could probably start doing that. But I don't think he is. But yeah, he's come a long way, and I appreciate you recognizing that and complimenting.
By the way, we all recognize that. Charlie does a good job there, and we are most appreciative of that.
It's great when you own a business, and over time you can spend less and less time there because you've got the right people in place. And that's literally what has happened here in the last year or two. Again, not at the beginning. It's been quite the road, like any business. But in the last year or two, it's been pretty great. And I'm able to then focus more on doing podcasts and my mental training business and traveling and everything. I do want to tell listeners that there's free goodies at dawngrant.com/free, whether it's free access to my Mind Mastered app, or my online courses for clay shooters, or even free golf cart rental at my shotgun club. Jim might take advantage of that. People can follow me on all social media for any of my businesses. And Jim, are you on social media? No. So if anybody wants to get to know you or shoot with you or have fun with you, should they find you at Amelia Shotgun Sports or what? How would they?
That would be the only way. Good luck.
Well, you said Thursday mornings. You're part of a group, right? And I'm sure that you'd welcome new people coming.
And by the way, just so you know, I'm on my way to Amelia because this is the last day to get the plays before the price goes up.
Since you bring that up, you're absolutely right. I gave everybody a week and a half notice before the price increase of February 1st, but I have not put my prices up in 2.5 years, which anybody in any business has got to know that that's not been easy, because there's been price increases everywhere. I was actually surprised because before I put my prices up, I always do comparisons, and I have like a spreadsheet, and I compared to 6 clubs in the area, however far I need to go to find 6 clubs. I have a spreadsheet with 6 clubs that I compare everything. And I had honestly no idea that all these clubs, except for one, had gone up to 60 cents a target for non-members, 62 cents a target. And I've been at 50. And I was like, oh my God. So I guess that's what's happened over the last 2.5 years. So I've gone up to 54 cents. So I knew, I couldn't increase it 10 or 12 cents. That would be too big of a jump. But I didn't realize. So these other places have been going up with the cost increases along the way.
Perfectly understandable.
Yeah, so you're going to go get, this is the last day to get
Last
your
day, yep.
lower price.
Yep.
Go get it, Tim.
I will do.
Well, thank you, and thanks for all your wisdom and insight, and I look forward to seeing you at the club soon.
Absolutely. Have a good day.
Thank you for joining us on Clay Mastermind with Dawn Grant. Mental excellence and industry insights. Brought to you by the Clay Lab. We hope you found today's episode inspiring and informative. Remember, mastering the mental game is key to unlocking your full potential on the course. And through our conversations with industry leaders, we aim to provide you with valuable insights into the world of clay shooting. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow, rate, and share it. For more insights, training tips, and updates on upcoming events, Dawn Grant and Amelia Shotgun Sports are on all social media platforms. Go to dawngrant.com and come shoot at Amelia Shotgun Sports. Stay focused, stay driven, and keep pushing your limits. Until next time, Dawn wishes you success and happiness on your journey to peak performance and industry mastery.